Joining me to discuss this decision and some of the ongoing speculation around the Voice is Indigenous leader and No campaigner Warren Mundine and Garrick Professor of Law at the University of Queensland, James Allan. Warren, I'll start with you. What did you make of the position that the opposition took today, or the Liberal Party rather, took today, on a legislated voice rather than one that is constitutionally enshrined?
Look, I wasn't surprised by that. It was no secret if people were listening in the background. My disappointment in the whole thing is that it's like being half pregnant. We're gonna not support the government in regard to the current setup of their language about the voice of Parliament. But at the same time, our backbenchers and that can do what they like. They could cross the floor, they can do anything they like. And this is one of the problems with the modern Liberal Party, is that they get these half-pregnant decisions made all the time, and this is why a lot of the voters out there think back and think, well, why? We look at the Labor Party, when they make a decision, they're all in the tent, but when the Liberals make a decision, people wander around in the backbenches like brown cows, and so that was a very big disappointment for me. It should have been a hard no, and then go from there.
Well, James, I kind of agree with Warren, but my concern is that the people that you now have to convince to come over to the no side, and we've seen polling today that obviously shows there is some level of support. It would win if they went to a referendum today. The people you need to now convince to vote no are those who are teetering on the edge. They probably like the idea of a voice to Parliament, but they have some concern around how it will work and what the results will be, whether we end up with High Court challenges, etc. Does the Liberal Party taking the position it has today perhaps have more chance of bringing people along who have those legal queries?
Well, I think, Caleb, you're assuming that we were in a situation where no one has actually made the no case yet. So, of course, you're in a problem. If someone had come out on day one and said, it's antithetical to live in a liberal democracy where you put people into groups and you give people different rights depending on which group they're in, call it race, call it historical status, call it whatever you want. That has never worked well in any country ever. And so, of course, the problem is that no one has actually in the Liberal Party been out making the case. They've been sort of playing cutesy and quibbling about the actual wording. Now, the actual wording is bad. It's really bad. It's making Parliament subject to the Constitution, which means that you bring in the judges. The judges will say that may make representations becomes a constitutional right. It'll cover every bill that goes before Parliament. Activists will take over this body, which means it'll be a bit like the Senate. When the left wing comes into power, they will have no trouble dealing with the Senate. The left will have no trouble dealing with the Voice. Albanese knows this. When the right comes in, they will find it impossible to get anything done. They'll be called racist every time they deal with the body, and they'll end up having to become, pay the body off. And so it's a terrible idea. They should have come out on day one, in my view, and said, we're against this. Having said that, this is better than nothing. At least, a statutory voice body is no big deal. We already have hundreds of these bodies. We have an Indigenous Land Council. So we can all live. We could live with the statutory body. I don't like it, but it's better. It's certainly better than a constitutionalized body. So Warren's right. Disappointed they didn't come up with a hard no. We can leave Mr. Bragg and the 3 or 4 people in the party room who want to vote yes. The way to deal with them is through the pre-selection. Just get them out of Parliament. Open up pre-selections. Don't protect them as the Prime Minister, and we'll take them out. Because really, the problem with today's Liberal Party is they don't really stand for anything. This is a good first step. Mr. Dutton can start distinguishing the Liberal Party from Labour. He can start standing up for nuclear power. He can stand up for coal. He can start standing up for women's rights and separate spaces. So it's a start. It's better than it was before today.
Don't get too excited, James. The opposition leader's head might fall off if he realises he's got to do all that if he wants to win an election. And Warren, obviously, you've been involved in the organised No campaign. Having this from the Liberal Party is a little bit more wind in your sails, I would imagine. But where does the No campaign go from here? You've got to hit your straps now over the next few months.
Yeah, that's right, and we're going through that process at the moment. I've just signed off some money for advertising to go out. We're not like the Yes campaign has got everyone in corporate Australia and everyone in every sporting code who's supporting the Yes campaign. In fact, I gave up my membership of the Western Sydney Wanderers Club because my footy club, because they come out and said they support the Voice. Look. The problem the Liberals have is that, and this is one of the reasons why I oppose the Yes campaign, is because we're a liberal democracy. There's two falsehoods in this whole debate, that Aboriginals are not in the constitutions. Yes, we are. We are citizens of this country. We have been citizens of this country for decades, and we have all the rights and privilege of that citizenship. So we are in the constitution today. The other thing is that Aboriginals don't have a voice. Well, we've always had advisory committees, and I'm using the rhetoric of the Yes campaign there. It's only advisory committee. So what's the difference about this advisory committee to all the other advisory committees which they say have failed? I don't take the full thing of they failed. You look at the Indigenous business sector. It's grown from $6.2 million in 2015 to $8.7 billion, has created 45,000 jobs for Aboriginal people, and has created 3,700 Aboriginal businesses. So that's the way to go in a liberal democracy: free enterprise, and having our people elected to Parliament. And we've got record numbers of people across the country now. I think if you include the state and territory governments, there's probably something like 35 Aboriginals sitting in the parliaments around Australia.
And just quickly, James, before we go, what did you make of this news poll today that obviously showed a majority of Australians in a majority of states backed the Voice? Queensland's the only state to fall short, which means they would get the double majority they needed to win if it were held today. Is the message around the legal issues around the Voice and the lack of detail not getting through?
Well, no one's been making the case, Caleb. And if you go back to the Republic referendum, the initial polls are 70% in favor of Republic. And when people actually were presented with the no case, it just collapsed. It lost in every state. And I have been saying, as soon as the Liberals get out there and start making the no case, which they have not been doing, the polls, I said on day one, this would fail. And I still say it's going to fail. And, it just requires Mr. Dutton to, now that he's growing a backbone, to get out there and start making the no case across the country, because this is a really bad proposal which will have terrible effects on the country, and nobody knows that because no one's been saying it. So now that people will be out there saying it, it's going to be fine.
And James is right. The Republican thing was in the 70s and in the high 70s at this stage of the campaign. And then it just totally collapsed after that. I've always said the same thing as James. I've always said that they will lose, and because of the numbers are so low, all you have to do is shift a couple of percentage points down, and there it goes. It's all gone.
Exactly, it's all on the table.
Warren,
I'm sorry, gents, we've got to move on. James Warren, thank you for joining me tonight.